Hi, and welcome to the Nordic Pavilion at the... It's a good start. Youth are supposed to be the loud persons at this event, so we'll start with that sound. We're at COP27 in the Nordic Pavilion. My name is Amanda Björksell, and I am one of the youth delegates to the Swedish delegation representing the youth of my country. And we are gathered here today to speak about ecocide, and to speak about ecocide in the context also of the climate negotiations. And we are gathered at COP27, which means that we have had these negotiations since before I was born, I think since before many of you also were born. We are still not limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees. And during this 27 years or conferences, we have heard young people demanding climate justice. And we have had different demands throughout the years. We have had young people demonstrating, young people in the delegation, we have young people in the panels. But what we can see is common, or the two things that is the core is that we want increased justice and decreased emissions. And this year, the year 2022, have been a very important year, or is an important year for the planet. We have now the COP27. We are approaching the COP15 on biodiversity. We had UNEA and negotiations for environment. And also in June this year, we had the Stockholm Plus 50 conference. So a very important year. And at this event, we want to link this together. What can we see? How can we follow up from the former negotiations and bring to the table today? And I'm here with a brilliant panel of young people from different continents. And I will shortly introduce you and give you the word. Then I will be quiet. But firstly, I want to take us back to our demands and looking at the Stockholm Plus 50 conference. The Stockholm conference took place exactly 50 years ago in Stockholm. And at that conference, the Swedish Prime Minister, Olof Palme, demanded an international law against large-scale environmental degradation. 50 years later, we gather in Stockholm. From my perspective, it hasn't happened too much. We still have no law on ecocide, but that was one of the big demands from the youth, from the global youth, and also something that the youth from the Nordic and the Baltic countries mentioned clearly in our position paper. During the conference in Stockholm, we also had meetings with the Nordic ministers, and we will get back to really trying to talk to them and force them to include this law or to advocate for the Ecocide Law. And we also got promises. So we're here to follow up on those promises as well. And this I will do with this panel of young experts. So with me I have Marcus, which is a Danish youth delegate. We also have Maximo from Argentina, who is the UNDP Youth Global Ambassador. We have Maija from Finland, who is a Finnish youth delegate. And we also have Ghaamid from Tanzania, from the Tanzanian Youth Biodiversity Network. And when my organization, the Swedish Council of Youth Organizations, have those kind of meetings, we try to have a not too formal touch. So we will open up the space for you to also ask questions, for you to ask each other questions, or feel that you are free to express yourself in a way you're comfortable with. And the audience here can also be free to raise your hands, and I will include your questions. And to kind of set the tone, I will ask you to present your view on this topic, on the Ecocide Law, and why we are here today as youth discussing this Ecocide Law. And we can start with you.
Sure. Thank you so much. So my perspective as a Tanzanian on the Ecocide Law is actually an important law. We should be checking on how the sectors are actually emerging, because the governance in our country is more similar to sectoral policies. If it's agriculture, if it's water, if it's climate, if it's environment, if it's Ministry of Energy. So the nexus between these ministries is actually creating a scenario which can actually be an independent ecocide law in every ministry, because we are having the polluters pay principle. Polluters pays principle is actually on the process, but I cannot say that it's actually implemented in such a way. I don't know your views on that, but polluters pays principle, it has been applied in my country, especially on the extent of industrial pollution, the way it affects our water resources management in my country. And just recently, one of our rivers, called River Mara, got issues and people were fined for that. So I can say it's a beginning phase of the ecocide law, but I won't necessarily say that all sectors are well connected to combining an ecosystem, a whole ecosystem approach of all sectors. So I guess ecocide law should not only remain in industries, but actually investigating in every ministry on what really ecocide according to that particular ecosystem of that ministry. Like for example, agriculture, we need to check who is the most polluting in terms of agriculture. Maybe the use of more artificial fertilizers is the factor about that, which is true. Adding more nitrogen and fertilizers to the water resources means you are putting more algae blooms and eutrophication at the end. And therefore, a meaningful ecocide to every sector will be very, very crucial. Yeah, a meaningful ecocide law in every sector will actually be meaningful, because we'll understand that this ecocide law is for a specific sector. If it's agriculture, it's all about artificial fertilizers and ways that it can cause eutrophication or algae blooms. If it's energy, let's focus on those industrial production of those types of products or services. And therefore, maybe an ecocide law can now be combined from different sectors, creating a cross-sectoral law for the whole country. That's my perspective, and I hope to share more later on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Can pass on the mic.
Okay, I think I would love to pass the mic first to my colleague here on the left.
I go? Okay. Can you hear me okay? Yeah?
Go further.
Okay, thank you, my colleague, thank you, Amanda. Okay.
Okay. Only you need it.
Hello. You can hear me?
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So, just an initial reflection. Like 10, 12 years ago, when we started, if we talked about ecocide, we said that word to the establishment in our region, we were looked like a little bit exaggerated, or like a little like crazy people, no? Talking about ecocide, what's that? So we never had like such an appropriate and precise word to define something. It's the killing of the home. And it's very interesting because we have a word for like homicide or genocide, and we understand it, and we need a lot of education still to understand what ecocides mean, to assimilate the information. We are talking not about killing a spider, we are talking about killing the spider web. We are talking about killing hundreds, thousands, and even millions of interconnections that happen in an ecosystem, and we need those interconnections to sustain life. So, for me, that I'm doing this since 15 years ago, it's amazing how it evolved during time, and I think that we never been in a better place to discuss this topic globally, to put it on the agenda, to put it on the table. We're already doing this since several years ago between many organizations, because the world is ruled by laws. We already know that, and the laws can be changed, the rules can be changed. That happened during the history of the world, and it's time to make that huge transformation so we can transitate or walk the path to sustainability. So just to make an initial reflection about the word ecocide, that I don't know if we all know what we are talking about.
I'm so happy to hear about the history of the Ecocide, about that has been a part of it and been on this way for the last 20 years or more. Because I really, when I hear it and when I think about it, then I also can feel a momentum for it right now. I know and see that it has become so much more sustainable, and it has become grounded in the youth, and for from a lot of youth, especially in the Nordic, when we were at the Stockholm Plus 50, it was something that we were fighting for. It was something that are coming, and I have no doubt in my mind that in the years apart in front of us, ecocide will be a law that will be applied in every country in the world. The question, I think, is which country will be the first, or which region. I saw earlier this week that Belgium was one of the first countries to apply this, and the first country in the EU to do it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see which countries are the next, and I think that we as youth should continue pushing for it, because yeah, this climate movement we have right now, it comes from the youth. It's youth who has brought it up. It's youth who are the founding fathers of the ideas of pushing it, and we have it from youth before us. It's been something, and it's not youth in age, but in youth in feeling and understanding the need for climate change and climate action right now. So yeah, when I hear it, I hear hope and I hear work. I hear that we have to do something, and I hear a hope for this to be a law in a couple of years. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. So I think you can hear me. Yes, I can hear myself at least. So hi everyone. Once again, I'm Maija, Youth Climate Delegate of Finland. And I heard the term of ecocide first time around 1 year ago when I attended COP26 climate conference. And I met Jojo Mehta, the CEO of the International Ecocide Movement and the law campaign. And also the advisor of the International Ecocide Law campaign, Mikko Pyhälä, is from Finland, and he's my friend, and he has taught me so much about the history and what's the background of ecocide. So I'm very thankful for him, and I wish that he could have been here with us at this COP27. And yeah, after I heard about ecocide, I started to work with the campaign in Finland. I trained myself. I learned more about the background, the history, and what we should definitely do, and how to achieve the goal, how to make it an international crime at ICC, the International Criminal Court. So then I found out that it's not an easy task. Like there should be a lot of support from the member states. There should be this consensus. We also heard from Bangladesh at the opening plenary about what is ecocide. But as we know, and as some of us heard this morning from other ecocide event at Youth and Children Pavilion, that there actually is very, very clear definition for it. I really recommend everyone to pay a visit to Ecocide Pavilion and learn more about it. So it must be, severe, clear mass destruction of nature or long-term, period. And we can define it, but we just need to have the consensus first. And there is this gap about how, and we need to feel it together. So it's very important today. Again, we are here talking about it together and, trying to find the consensus and share the information about it. So then at Stockholm Plus 50 last June, we were there with Amanda, Markus, and other Nordic and Baltic colleagues to talk with our ministers from different Nordic countries about ecocide and how our countries could make the statement, have the real discussion first, and have the decision or what are our goals for it. Do we want to support it, which is our goal, and we try to push our countries to do it. So then our Environment Minister of Finland, former Minister Emma Kari, and the former Secretary General of Nordic Council Ministers Paul Lehtomäki, they promised us that the Nordic countries will have this serious conversation of ecocide, and now together we are here again to have the discussion. Okay, not with them this time, but we will push forward and we will make sure that hopefully the Nordic countries will be the next after Belgium to really rely for international ecocide law. Let's do it together. We need everyone on board. Thank you. I can't hear you.
Okay, we'll try again. Now, I think this is a sign that technical solutions is not going to save everything. We need other methods as well. Thank you for your very interesting and inspiring talks. You have quite different perspectives on the ecocide law and different histories with working on. Wondering, why do you think that the youth movement have chosen ecocide as a tool for our demands? Because there are many fights to choose from for the youth movement and within the climate and biodiversity and environment. Why is the ecocide something that we have focused on? Because for me it's clear that this is something we've chosen to advocate for.
But I think, okay, this one is working now. Perfect. Thank you for your question. I'm actually disagreeing because I don't think that ecocide is the only thing, and it is not the only thing that youth are up to, but it's because it rhymes, it has, can you hear me? Yeah, perfect. Because it rhymes and it has the idea of the perspective of justice. Because in the ecocide law, there's this idea of justice. And I think, and when I hear youth talk about it, then justice is something that sets the heart on fire. It's something that gives us a drive to do something, because it's not fair and it's not just. And when it's not just, then I see that more youth are actually involved in it. When something are unjustified, then there is often youth who are saying it, and that's why I think they are so intense and so focused on ecocide, because the ecocide are making sure and making the point of injustice clear, and I think that's one of the reasons why youth are dealing and handling with this ecocide law.
Thank you.
Yeah. From my humble perspective, I believe that ecocide is at the heart of every sustainable goal demand. It's one of the highest aims that we can have in the legal system, ecocide. So, if we want to really transform our socioeconomic system towards the objective of having healthy ecosystems and human well-being, like always, as a constant, as a pillar of our way of life, we need to establish some ground rules, like, hey, you cannot destroy massively ecosystems, because these are the consequences, not just to us, not just as human beings, because everything we are seeing it all the time as with this egoism, but also because of the other species, because 1 million species are threat to disappear off the face of the earth. Do we really understand what we are talking about when we say that? What that means? Millions of years of evolution, and in a couple of years, thousands only, we come and we destroy them. Also, we have a very huge problem, what we detected as new generations, is that where is the justice in the law system? We have laws, but the laws are being implemented. We can go to third world countries as Argentina if you want. Not even one environmental law is being implemented. So one can say, hey, if we have an ecocide law, will it be implemented? It's not only about the implementation. It's about what it means. it's a symbol and also an implementation. To put a new moral standard of how do we need to relate with ourselves and with the environment. We have a lot of laws, administrative laws, but we need one international about environment that we can all be like, okay, this from here we start, and then locally see how we can implement, because it's not the same an industrialized country. Sorry, I speak Spanish all day, not English.
No worries.
Industrialized country is not the same as if you go to Uruguay that they have cows only. It's totally different how you're going to treat ecocide. But their whole economy depends on that, the whole society. So we can implement in 1 year an ecocide law, in 5 years, in 10. This gives us, this is for me the first big step for a huge transition that we are already doing, but this could be like the context. So we are going to fight for this as new generations.
Perfect.
Sure. I hope you can hear me. So, from my perspective, since I believe that the frameworks of the United Nations are actually non-binding agreements. Am I here? Yeah. Yeah. So, what I believe is that the UN framework is a non-binding agreement, and therefore an international convention will have a less power to affect the local implementation. So what do I mean? What do I mean is in three perspectives. It's science, policy, and practice. We youth have the power and the skills to train our fellow youngsters on how, first of all, to understand the science. Because we understand that, like, for example, this network here is full of young scientists, either in social sciences or physical sciences. Then there is a need for us to know which sector are you? Are you in the food sector? Are you in the water sector? Are you in the marine sector? Are you in the genetic or biotechnology sector? Then from there, from the science, the same youth need to go to another round of understanding the policies in their local areas and their countries. What do I mean? It means by understanding the food regulations, or for the biotechnologists, they should understand what are the genetic resources regulations in their countries. Then from there, how can they affect the country policies? Correct? What do I mean by saying this? We're just trying to find a gap where youth can actually say something about the law of the country by using their scientific experience and affecting the policies, because they understand the science. We all understand the effect of nitrogen and what it has to the water, because you are a water scientist, right? So it's easier for you to defend your point to the lawyers and be able to also show an opportunity to the law, to the laws and regulations sector, that this is actually a space where even the government can do something about it. Because for the governments, they want a win-win situation. It's not just creating a law, but actually you can tell them what are the cost and benefit analysis if this species gets gone. You're a species expert, you understand more. And therefore, from understanding the science and studying it, then it means policy. Then the other nexus, or the last one, is actually practice. Now, since you're already understanding what's the science and what sector are you in, and what are the sector governing your skills, and where you're practicing your skills, if it's water, if it's food, then it's easier for you to get into practice and actually affecting the government laws and regulations, because you understand what you mean, and you also know the cost and benefit analysis which your particular government will be affected on. And I guess that's my perspective on the best way to be part of the regulation and laws process to support ecocide. It cannot be easily termed at ecocide, but you can find other ways to actually lobby with the government. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my colleagues, for sharing your thoughts. I want to give the space, especially for you, to be heard more. So I think it's a short answer from one perspective. That's why, because we live in a world where mainly the hard values are the values that we care the most. So, for example, economy has always, not always, but mainly been the most important during the too many years past, and social or environmental aspects have been, the ones that have been put aside, and economy has always been the strongest, the hardest value we care the most. And when you're talking about, should we save Amazon area, or should we cut trees off because we need money, we need areas for livestock to get money, it's the easy answer. You choose the option you get money from. So we need to change our system, and laws are the way we can really have the impact on and change the system. Maybe not the fastest way, but it's very clear path we can take. And it's sure that we need more regulation, because some people are, relying on the markets, that yes, market will change the system. We can go and have this green transition. But with these volunteer tools, they should already have done the transition. They should already have, resolve this whole problem. So that's why we need Ecocide as an international law. Yes.
Thank you. And you have highlighted, for example, that we are at this COP. It's all voluntary. It's very difficult with actually finding responsibility to do something. But when we look at this law, that would be an international law against ecocide, which means that all countries have to actually adjust to this law. But we come from countries with very different contexts. We have different environmental challenges. So what do you envision when you see the Ecocide law, and for your own context or your own country, why is it important for your country for this to be implemented? Could you see any direct changes or system change by implementing the Ecocide law in your country?
Yeah, I can start. I think a very interesting question about what is the need for example, Denmark, where I'm from, for them to implement the Ecocide law. A boring answer will be that it has to go through EU, and the EU has to make a law on that. But to have a little more, another saying where we as youth can be a little bit more involved, it is that we are here sitting 5 youth who are only agreeing that this is a great idea. But we need to have this conversation with someone who are not here. We need to have them with the ministers. We need to have them with the head of government. We need to have it with the NGOs who has the manpower to help us put the pressure on the government to make the Ecocide law a reality. So one thing is that we should go out to the NGOs in our country who are working with this. We have to go out and we have to make our voices heard. And then we should have the knowledge to see what other countries are doing and find inspiration, because this law isn't a national. We need to do it international. So we have to find best practicing from all our countries. We need to find the best practice for different types, and we need to share our knowledge on this, because I think that's the fastest and the bestest way to make this go as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we are advocating for laws that are building the base for the Ecocide law since many years ago. For example, in our country, we cannot talk about Ecocide if they don't understand climate change, biodiversity, ecological or the benefits of the ecosystems, etc. So, for example, we sanctioned a law in Argentina that is called the Environmental Education Law for Public Workers, that includes from president to every level of the state. that is very important, because without education, how are you going to reach a discussion of this level, talking about an ecocide law, international or a national level? It's about changing the constitution of our country. This changes everything, literally, how we relate with each other. For example, we were trying to approve a law that has a lot of similarities with what we are trying to accomplish here. That is the environmental assessment law, to try to measure the impact of our activities. So imagine in a third world country, I will go to Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Peru, or Africa, okay, and say, hey, stop construction. That is probably 20% of direct, indirect jobs, because we need to do an environmental assessment of this, interdisciplinary, just to measure the impact of the activity. Maybe we will take 6 months, 1 year. What is going to happen with the economy as we have it right now? That's why what we are trying to accomplish here needs education. A huge factor of education. That I'm not hearing a lot about education. Last COP, I heard for the first time a big coalition of education. I think the first step, we always knew it was the first step. If we don't understand how we're going to change this system. But I will pass the word, because if not, I continue.
You want to continue?
Yeah, please go.
Okay, so what is my vision for ecocide law, or what's important for my country? Yeah, so I think the definition we already have, so I think it's very good one. So we should focus more on how to find the consensus to finally get to this conversations, to really proceed on to get it implemented in near future. And that's my vision, to have this fast process on it, and to have this, real aim from different people from different parts of the world to really share the consensus, and really to be, dedicated to work with ecocide law, and after it's implemented to, consultate ICCs, or, work with it and try to prevent from more mass destruction to nature or our ecosystems. Because as we know that ecocide is a root cause of climate change or biodiversity loss, it is really important that we really work with it to get it implemented. And in Finland, I think we already have a pretty good base for our laws system. So we kind of don't have these kind of problems of, mass destruction of nature. We can talk about forests. So we are using our forests too much for our economic pursuit. So there are no natural forests anymore that much, only like 3% of something like that. So, but it can't be defined as a ecocide. It's not that bad. But I think that as we know that the pipelines in the Baltic Sea was exploded, when we talk about the Russian aggression in Ukraine and the attack war. So I think that could be like a near example to Finland. What could be ecocide? If it's happening in the economic areas of Sweden or Denmark, I think even though if we could find the person or the body who created this destruction, and that body doesn't agree with international ecocide law, I think that, as I know and as I understood, that it doesn't need to be, agreed from the both sides. If Sweden or Denmark has agreed on international ecocide law, they could use the tool. So maybe the Baltic Sea is one very near to Finland, for example, or Arctic, or the forests in very, very large scale could be some examples. We could need this law also in Finland.
So my perspective is actually just adding more value to them, because they have said it all. So So I was. I'm audible now?
I can't hear you.
You can take this.
Yeah, so my perspective was actually more on the training part because we have so many young scientists who are able to understand what biodiversity is, what are the social impacts, to different projects in terms of the biodiversity protection, how are the people affected. Now, what I'm thinking, from my example, in the Tanzanian Youth Biodiversity Network has like more than 500 volunteers. But then, what do they know about the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework? What do they know about the IPBS, the Platform for Scientists and Biodiversity? What do they know about the IPCC? Because I still stand on the point of the young scientists who are actually graduates of important courses, environmental studies, even other than master's program, PhD programs. But what are they really contributing to the policy, to the policy system that their countries are having? Because I believe for a system to change, it takes time, and it's just like climate change. It has to be measured more than a decade. But the youngsters have to understand what really is the existing system, because sometimes you might find another group actually discussing about policies, not knowing that their government is actually writing that down and has written down like 10 years ago. But maybe understanding the existing policy could be a greater factor for them to understand where can they input additional comments into the policies, and also understanding the best ways that the systems are working. I mentioned about the cross-sectoral policies, like ministries sometimes collide together. The Ministry of Energy depends on the Ministry of Water for hydropower. The Ministry of Agriculture depends on the Ministry of Water. Now, understanding the system on how it works will always be the best way to know what value are you adding to the existing system, if it's law, if it's regulation, and if possible the policies. But also, we need to go with the rhythm on how things are changing. We need to know, we need to be updated, because we might be discussing now about the post 2020 or the maybe the climate pact which will be launched under this COP. But then we need to understand what are actually the outputs and what can we add value to the outputs and say something to our national focal points, the climate focal points or the biodiversity focal points. So my idea was more of understanding the existing system and building more capacities to create, if possible, young negotiators or young scientists to understand the policies and put it into practice. Yes.
Thank you. And now we have already started to touch upon how we can actually implement this and what difference it would make and in which sectors we actually have to advance. But looking back at what happened during the Stockholm Plus 50 conference, we had a discussion with our ministers, with the ministers of the Nordic countries, which with the pavilion we are, and we also invited them to come here, but yeah, they are not here, apparently, as you can see. And we were promised that they would continue this discussion, that they would raise the question of ecocide on a Nordic level. So I just want to ask my Nordic colleagues here, have you heard anything about that continuation?
Have you?
I think we can do it short and just say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
Yeah, there was
Unfortunately.
a short answer on the process ahead. And this is also why we are here talking about the Ecocide Law. We have to continue pushing for this and pushing for this at COP27. And for this, we all have a responsibility, right? Before closing, I wish to open up for the audience here. Is there something you wish to ask or some perspectives you want to add to the conversation?
Hello, hello. Wonderful. Thank you very much for a really good panel and some powerful statements and powerful ideas. As the Icelandic youth delegate on climate change and environment, we haven't really sort of begun the process of pushing our government to implement the Ecocide Law. Some of our parliamentarians, however, have put the Ecocide Law on the agenda. So I was wondering if you have any sort of suggestions for me and my team in Iceland, as well as other youth delegates or other people in civil society, for how to start pressuring our politicians and policymakers to actually implement the Ecocide Law in our countries.
I can start. Great question. What we can do to make them start doing it. One thing is that unfortunately we need to have an ecocide law, but I wish that we didn't, because the ecocide law is because we have misunderstood our connection to the nature. It's because we have perverted ourselves, so we no longer are in contact with the nature. And I think that's one of the things that we need to change, because the change not has to be a law. It has to be a total existential turnaround in our understanding of ourselves and the nature, because we need to see this as a norm. We need to see this as a change on a way we think on ourselves and we think on nature. So this has to be more and has to be bigger. We have to lift it up from just a law to something existential. We have to take it into ourselves, because this actually affects our everyday life. This has to, and it must affect the way we see ourselves and we see and produce, and just the whole way we are in nature. Because if everyone was thinking in a new way, or thinking that nature and human has to be combined, then we didn't have to have this. Then we weren't sitting here. Then we were sitting talking about something else. Maybe not this cup at all. Yeah.
If I can continue, I would love to recommend you to build a network. So find people around you to work together with them from different, backgrounds, like environmental-oriented lawyers, activists, politicians, anyone on board you could get from your area or region, or even, international, network, to get some help from the Ecocide campaign, for example, or Nordic collaboration and stuff like that. Because, for example, when I was interviewed in one environment magazine in Finland, then I got contacted from a Finnish environment-oriented lawyer, and she told me that she wants to collaborate with me and try to enhance the process in Finland. So I really recommend to contact especially lawyers, because they know the law basement of this issue and this aim. So, and then together to find the people who really have the impact on this matter in Iceland. For example, I heard that there is going to be a meeting of ICC in December, so you could find out what is the Icelandic delegation, who are the members of the Icelandic delegation to this ICC conference in December, because I think they are going to discuss hopefully also about this proposal of ecocide law.
I would add that we have a couple of white elephants on the room when we talk about this. To start with, probably almost all of us, we have ecocide every day in ourselves. These shoes, my cell phone, I can start pointing and pointing and pointing. We have ecocide everywhere. Another thing is that, knowing this, we need to work in an intersectional way in our countries. I will recommend, because we achieved many laws, environmental laws in Argentina, for example, and our way was to sit with every sector. We sit with every sector. That doesn't mean that you are with them or whatever. But every sector means every sector. Unions, private sector, religious organizations. Even in our country, for example, church is very powerful. So I sit with church, but I also sit with the other religions. We sit with civil society, we sit with politicians, every party. We don't care. We sit and we adapt the message. That it's so important. To understand what they want, how much time do they have to do something like this, what would they say, or the lobby that they will do in the different places. So detecting that for us always was was very important and the first step to accomplish many things. Then you have many ways of doing it, and we need all the ways. We need the physical activism, the digital activism, like in the streets, everywhere, and also always peacefully. Also the digital. Use the digital. The youth, we have the power of the digital. We don't even have to pay. We do a video, we have 1 million views. The other generations are used to pay for publicity. We grab 50 of us and we have more publicity organically than all the others that have the power. So after that, that is activism, proposals, actual proposals. If not, you are a youth that is crazy. They will not listen. We will not get forward. We need to think actual proposals that are based on science, that are realistic, that are possible. Even the Stop Ecocide movement says, hey, if we do this, it's not going to be for tomorrow. We will need an adaptation day, like 7 years maybe, depending the country. So we need to understand that also when we speak, because if not, it's like we need now. Everything's going to change now. It's not possible. And we're going to not use this. I have people that goes against minery, many organizations in Argentina. Okay, let's leave this. We don't want minery in Argentina, but from where is going to come all the metals that are here? Should we have a plan? Should we have an answer already? We're 8 billion people. So that's the elephant in the room that we have to put as youth and ask ourselves internally all the time, like, hey, do we have an answer for this? Or we are expecting them to have the answer? Okay, let's look the answer. We don't have to have the answers for everything also. We just need to know where we want to go. And also, well, we have other elephants in the room, but I would like to bring them if we're going to talk about the Ecocide Law. Go Ecocide Law!
Thank you for that very inspirational speech. And I think what is obvious here that we talk about an ecocide law, so we talk about the legislative method and the tool for actually addressing another perspective of nature. And I really like what you highlighted, Marcus, also that maybe it's our language and our relation to nature that has to be addressed. And we're in this climate negotiations, we're talking about finance, numbers, we talk about emissions in numbers, but we actually talk about nature. And then for me personally, we need another language to address that. And ecocide and what you have been talking about now, how we can include ecocide in different sectors, the role of young scientists, the need for a transformational and radical system change, then ecocide is a big and important part of that, which we have to continue to push for. And unfortunately, we have to move on soon to the next part of the COP27. But before allowing you to exit the stage here, I just want to have ask a word from you, what you wish for during the coming weeks, what you hope for during the COP27. Do you think that we can continue this discussion here, or what is the next step for this discussion?
Yeah, expectations are, of course, based on science. So my expectations are actually from the IPCC, what is written should be actually implemented individually in countries. The principle of a common but differentiated principle should also be applied. The countries need to be backed by science, because the nexus between science, policy, and practice is very important. It's just, it shouldn't be just a word of mouth, but actually the nexus is important. Recently, the IPBES launched a species report. I also recommend you for that. The species report speaks about how many species are actually extinct worldwide. And the species report is actually science from the IPBES. And the same goes to the emissions which the IPCC report out. So we really need to say our points or implementations in the government from those reports, and also apply realities of our local context. But of course, the support is needed. Cooperation between nations is needed, because we need to understand also the climate and biodiversity financing mechanisms to see the best ways on how to implement this. So that's my take. Thank you so much.
Yes, I try to walk through the conference area for the rest of the conference with the sign "Stop Ecocide Now," and every person I meet to raise this raised awareness on this issue and on this campaign with everyone I meet. And I know it's not on the agenda of COP27, but I think we can still, try to make it on the agenda with every, meetings we have or the people we meet. So that could be important, and also do the work back at home in our countries to find these tools and to find the ways how we can impact there and make our nations, our countries to have the statements to support ecocide law. And what else? What needs to be done next? Yeah, I think it's still about raising awareness. It's very great that Stop Ecocide campaign, they have their first pavilion here at COP. It's a new thing. So also, I think that in December, if there really is this ICC meeting, it's a very important one. Maybe we should gather again during the COP and think what is our strategy for that? How can we push our countries, our member states of ICC to take this ecocide law on agenda there?
So officially, with some colleagues and organizations, we expect that we can advance in the adaptation and loss of damage agenda, but non-officially, because COPs are not the only thing what is going on in negotiation rooms. For me, my humble opinion, is this. Is getting to know people, networking. Let's see what happens between COPs also. We are growing in numbers, in daily basis, exponentially. Before, there were the environmentalists. Now our lawyers, economists, accountants, whatever, engineers, we are all in this right now. We got it, we put it on the agenda. Now we are trying to figure out how to do this in the right way and in the better way, with the emergencies we have, with the urgencies we have, but also considering a just and inclusive transition, no? So, unofficially, like not in the agenda, I expect about the ecocide law that we keep talking about the concept, so we can understand what that means. And if we put it out there, next year we will be more, and next year more, and not even Belgium will have this amazing news. Belgium is the first country in the European Union. This was this week, but we know one starts and it starts replying. So we start building this legally, internationally context of ecocide as one of the big in the Statute of Rome bullets.
Yeah, I totally agree with what that has been said. What we hope for the COP, but another thing, I hope that the negotiators will see more than just numbers. That they will see humans, that they actually are affecting on what they are saying and what they are negotiating on. I hope that they will think about this climate as something that's more existential than just laws and something. I hope that this will be something that we'll take on us and not something that we'll just write on a piece of paper. Yeah, I think, I hope for that.
Great. Then I want to thank you for taking this time. Thank you to my amazing panel. Thank you to the audience and the ones watching from home. And let's continue this discussion. Let's continue the fight. And we have to make sure we have an ecocide law. So we have a huge work ahead, but we're in this together. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ecocide law.
Let's do it together.
Yeah, I want one.